Hi, my name is Fungai, and I'm going to be showing you how to handle the Aptis General Writing Test. Now, what we have here is the opening page of the test. When you get to British Council, they're going to give you a paper which has got your details, but crucially, what it's going to have, it is going to have a list of passwords. Those passwords are for each individual test that you're going to be writing on that day. So one for writing, another one for reading, another one for grammar and vocabulary, speaking, and listening. Now, they also give you another password, which is to highlight who you are. It's your student code. So that is what you put in these gaps. When you're finished putting them in these gaps, you then click next. In this example here, those details have been put in place already. So I'm going to click next. And then here, you're then going to put in the individual code for that subject, for that particular section. In this case, this would be the writing section. So I put in the code. And since this is an example video, the code has already been put in for me. I then click next. After that, it then asks you to confirm that you are the right student. Now, in the exam, this would say, are you Fungai? Instead of writing example test student. When you've confirmed that you have the right test and you are the person that is meant to be writing this test, you then click yes. Okay. Now, you then log into this particular page, which then leads you to the introduction and the instructions for this particular exam. Right. Now, the exam is going to take 50 minutes, and they've given you a breakdown of how long you should take to write each section. Now, this is not compulsory. It's not an obligation. You don't have to take 3 minutes just for part one. If you wanted to, you can take 5 minutes. But if you take 5 minutes, that means you're going to have to take less time in another section. Overall, the whole exam is 50 minutes. Now, the structure of the exam is quite simple. In part one, you will get 5 questions discussing a particular topic. For instance, maybe you joined a language club and 5 people have messaged you and you're responding to those messages. Each of your answers should be maximum 5 words. So it's nice, simple, short responses. In part 2, they then ask you a follow-up question, which you then have to use between 20 to 30 words. Also still on the same topic as the previous 5. Also quite short, and you just have to make sure that you express yourself quite clearly. In part 3, which is now a little bit longer, you then have 3 additional questions. And for those 3 questions, you now have to write 30 to 40 words. The dynamic of those 3 questions is very much like a social network conversation. Think of it as if you've joined a group on Facebook. And once you join that group, the members of that group then message you asking you about particular interests regarding that group, why you wanted to join that group, for example, and then you respond. The whole conversation is quite informal. All right. Part 4 is a combination of 2 emails, right? The first email is quite short. It's only just 50 words, maximum 50 words. And it is an informal email to a friend regarding the topic that has been set as the theme for that overall writing paper. The second email, which is the longest writing you will do in this exam, is a formal email. And that formal email is going to be 120 to 150 words long. It will be an email more than likely to an authority figure. Let's say, for instance, you joined a language club, right? And you've been discussing the language club in parts 1, 2, and 3. Now you're writing an email to, let's say, the administrator of the language club, and you are most likely complaining or unhappy about something. You might also be asking for information. It depends on the question. The whole point of the writing exam, or at least things that you should notice when you're doing the writing exam, is it is better to write simpler, clear, short sentences than trying to be complicated and complex, because that leads to more mistakes, right? Simpler is always better in general. Okay, now we can move along to the exam. As you can see, the questions are quite short. What do you usually do in the morning? I eat breakfast. What is your favorite place? A bar called Los Grifos. Right, so as you can see, you have to keep it nice and short, no long sentences, nothing like that. I'm satisfied with my answers. I'm going to skip to the next section of the exam. Remember, unlike me, because this is an example, right, you have to answer all the questions. You cannot leave any empty gaps in the exam. Okay? Please tell us why you are interested in travel. I went to an international school where all the students were from all over the world. As a result, I would like to visit them. Okay. The requirement in this particular part of the exam says I should use between 20 to 30 words. As you can see, with my word count here, I've written approximately 25 words. That is perfectly satisfactory. It's right in between the limits that have been put, right? And I've responded to the question. Let's move to the next part of the exam. Now, this is part 3. As stated earlier, this is where you find the social network type questions. And you have to respond clearly to the questions you're given. If you wish, you can even address the person who's written to you directly. So for instance, Sam says, "Hi, welcome to the club. Can you remember the first time you went on a journey by yourself?" Always like, I can then say, "Hi, Sam." You don't have to, but you can say, "Hi, Sam. I was 9 to see my uncle who lived in Bulawayo." It was amazing. Right. Okay. Now, if you notice, I've kept my sentences quite short, they're not long, and I've tried to use fairly simple language. because what we're trying to do at this particular moment is mostly to make sure we minimize the mistakes we make and we speak in an understandable manner. It would be very easy to attempt to write more complex language, but the more complex language you utilize, the more likely it is that you will make a mistake. And since this is the general paper, we are not necessarily looking for really complex sentence structures. So it's always better to keep it nice and simple. My word count is 36 words, and the limit is between 30 to 40 words. This is perfectly acceptable, and then I would then do the same thing for the next two questions, and then move over to the next part of the exam. Now, we are writing a test. We're going to write an email to a friend regarding Mr. Price's inability to attend the club meeting. Now, as you can see, right, this is something that is disappointing. It's a problem. So essentially what that means is that I am probably going to be sad about it, or angry, or frustrated. And that's what I need to talk about when I email my friend, and after which when I also email the president of the club in the formal email. Now, the friend, you decide the name. If you want to write hi Dave or hi Christina, so be it. They have not given you a name, right? But it is best that you actually add the name yourself. All right. Now, in the first email, the short one for just 50 words, you can use informal language. It is certainly not necessary for you to write informal language because you're writing to a friend. So it is someone you are familiar with and comfortable with. So casual language is perfectly acceptable. It also means you can use contractions. You could use some slang, at least English-related slang to some degree. You can use, however, you cannot use shorthand. So you cannot write BRB to mean be right back, or LOL to mean, laugh out loud. All right? You have to actually write full sentence structures. Contractions are allowed. Okay, so now we will start typing in our response to the informal email. Now, as you can see in this particular response, I say, hi Chris, how are you doing? That's an informal structure. Remember the book club meeting we said we would go to? I found a mistake. And then I fixed that. We would go to next week. Well, the author just cancelled and the whole thing is now rather pointless. Would you like to do something else instead? Give me a call later. Cheers from Guy. Right, so I've used very simple structures, and as you've noticed, it is very important you reread what you've typed because you could have made a mistake. And then when you're finished, right, as you can tell, you first start with the introduction, hi Chris, or at least you greet the person you're writing to. Immediately after, you put a comma and then you jump down one line to the bottom to then start the next one. You do not write them together like this. No, that is wrong. You need to drop down to create a whole different structure. All right. and then you then continue the conversation. Nice, simple, clear language. Nothing crazy, nothing special or spectacular. Simple is better. Okay. Now, and I was supposed to write about 50 words, and I wrote 47 words, which is just perfect. Now, I have to write a formal email to the president of the club, speaking about my particular issues regarding this. Right. Now, as you can see, I am addressing the president of the club, so I write, Dear President of the club. I could have written to whom it may concern if I didn't know who it is I was talking to, but since I know who I'm sending the email to, I write, Dear President of the club. Right. So here I'm starting off by at least mentioning my association to the club and the fact that I have received their communication. Immediately after, I then talk about my feelings regarding the cancellation, right? In this case, I'm disappointed. So I then further go and explain why I am angry with these changes and how that has affected my general life, right? I can then also then after this, I could then start giving suggestions to the club as to what they could possibly do. In this case, could Mr. David Price come again at a different date or a different time? And if not, could we possibly get an alternative speaker, for example? And then after, because they asked us specifically if we still want books, right? They've given us information about his new book. Now, I then also then say, no, I don't need a copy, so that is totally okay, right? And then you finish off with a conclusion, right? Okay. Now, my word limit at the moment is at 140 words. I'm supposed to write between 120 and 150 words. That is perfectly fine. So I said, "Dear President of the club, I'm a member of the club and I just received your email regarding the next club meeting. I'm incredibly disappointed that Mr. David Price can no longer attend the meeting. I am also angry since I had to rearrange my work days to make it possible for me to attend the meeting specifically so I could meet him. What am I supposed to do now? Could Mr. Price attend a meeting another day? If not, can we possibly have another author in his place? As for copies of his book, I have reserved one copy for him to sign, but he's no longer coming, then I no longer need it. I hope we can find a solution that helps everyone and we can meet him someday. Kind regards, Fungai Jayasuriya." All right. Nice short sentences. This is an example of what we'd expect from you when you write a formal email. Right. When you're finished with that, looking at the time, right, you can go back to previous sections to reread your work and double check. Right now, we only have 2 minutes left, so we won't have much time for us to be able to reread the whole exam. But if I had more time, I'd be able to go back, just like this, and see, these are the answers I put in before. This is what I wrote before, etc. And then you can make adjustments. Finish off things that you hadn't quite finished, and then when you're done with all of that, you then go all the way to the end, and then you click next to finish your exam. Right. Here it tells you the questions which you've answered completely. Now, if you remember, I left empty spaces in parts 1 and in parts 3. That is why they are not green, right? And they are gray. But I completely answered, as you can tell, I did not finish, right? But I did fully answer questions 2 and questions 4. When I'm done, I say finish, and then it confirms if I'm happy with everything that I've done. I say yes, and the test is finished, right? This is how you handle the Aptis writing test. I hope this video has been helpful, and we'll see you sometime.